Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Wednesday class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto ma sadgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityorma amritam gamya. Om sehna bhavatu, sehna bhunaktu, seviryam karvahvai, tejasvi navadhitamastu, ma vidvishavai. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om. Lot of scriptural terms, they are used without knowing the meaning. For example, dharam, karam, kriya yoga, or yoga itself. Lot of terms. They sound good to us, so without even knowing the meaning, we use them. And sometimes we use them in the wrong context also. Today I want to talk about the term consciousness, because that's also used often. People use the term cosmic consciousness or even Krishna consciousness, environmental consciousness, because somebody is concerned about the global warming. They'll use that term. Or if somebody is happen to be on a diet, they might use the weight conscious or calorie conscious. So those terms are used very loosely also. But as a student of philosophy, student of yoga, let's dig deeper into this term consciousness. We got to be absolutely clear about what the word consciousness means in these deeper teachings. Like most words, the meaning of consciousness depends upon its context. For example, if somebody has suffered a stroke and was taken to a hospital, doctor might describe his or her state of consciousness as being lucid or confused or stuporous or even comatose, depending on the condition. So these words actually describe how you respond to external stimuli. For example, the verbal instructions or the way the person is touching you. So these medical terms do not really describe your inner state of consciousness. After all, no doctor can truly know what you yourself feel or experience while you're lying there in that emergency room. Suppose that stroke temporarily robbed that person of his or her ability to talk or move. But a person remained completely alert and fully aware of everything happening around him. But he could not respond to the doctor's questions or even open his eyes, and the doctor might say that he is unconscious. Or you are in a state of coma. If that person heard the doctor say that while lying there fully alert, he'll be very surprised. Suppose the doctor orders the EEG test to measure the electrical activity of his brain. And by reading the charts, the doctor could correctly assess the condition and realize his mistake. But even then, the EEG test would not tell the doctor anything whatsoever about his inner subjective experience. Remember the subjective experience. His consciousness is a private reality. Can't be known by anyone other than him. So the same way it cannot be known by anyone other than us, our inner reality. That is consciousness. So then what exactly is that consciousness? Our consciousness, your consciousness. Let's consider what's happening right now. Right now in a waking state. You can watch me through this screen. You can even hear the sound. The images and the sounds are captured by your eyes and ears. Then specialized nerves, they convey all that information to your brain. Your brain is an unimaginably intricate network of 100 billion neurons, each of which send thousands of electrochemical signals to other neurons. That's how complex this machinery is. And as a result of this fantastically complex process, images and the sounds, they arise in your mind. And as they arise in your mind, you become conscious or aware of them. You are aware of the contents of your mind. In addition to these images and sounds, various kinds of thoughts and emotions also arise in your mind. And you become aware of them also. So we can say that consciousness is your capacity to be aware of all the perceptions, thoughts, emotions that arise in your mind. Definitely, that's a helpful definition. Sometimes we use the word awareness also for the same thing. But now imagine that a robot, because the technology is there right now. Suppose there's a robot sitting next to you, watching also, listening also. Would that robot have the same experience as you? Because cameras and the microphones could certainly capture all these images and sounds also, just like your eyes and ears. The robot will convert these images and sounds into numerical values and store all the data in memory chips inside its computer brain. Then the robot would process that according to its programming. Yet, the robot would not be conscious or aware of what's happening inside its computer brain. It wouldn't actually experience what you and I are experiencing. After all, it's just a machine. Like any other machine, it can function perfectly well without consciousness. But we, on the other hand, are sentient, conscious beings, fully aware of everything, what happens in our mind. Without consciousness, we would not exist. So far we have been discussing experience of the waking state with our eyes open and ears fully alert. How about the dream and the deep sleep state? What happens at that time? Where is the light of the consciousness at that time? What is the source of our dreams? What happens to that sentient conscious being, the source Where is it at that time? Are you aware of your mind's activity? Because you are aware of it when you are awake. Are you aware of it when you are sleeping, dreaming? Or even when you are in the deep sleep? Remember, the main difference between the waking and the dream states is that when you are awake, everything you see, hear, taste, smell, and touch comes from your five senses. That is a waking state. Whereas in your dreams, you are still perceiving, you are also seeing. Where does it come from? It comes from your memories and your power of imagination. That's what the dreams are. What happens at night during a deep, dreamless sleep? What are you conscious of then? Nothing. Nothing at all. You are conscious of the complete absence of any thoughts, emotions, or perceptions in your mind. During deep sleep, the light of consciousness continues to shine brightly. So consciousness does not sleep at that time. You remain fully aware, but there is nothing to be aware of, nothing to be illumined by the light of consciousness. It's almost like a lamp is shining brightly in a completely empty room with black walls, black ceiling, and a black floor. That's how it is. That you remain fully conscious in deep sleep might seem counterintuitive at first. But imagine standing inside a perfectly dark room with your eyes wide open. You can see, but there's nothing to be seen. You don't temporarily become blind in a dark room. And in the same way, you don't temporarily become unconscious in deep sleep. So your consciousness is fully awake at that time too. The light of consciousness does not blink on and off like a light bulb. It stays on all the time. As a sentient being, you are the source of that light. And it's absurd to suggest that you cease to exist in deep sleep. So these are the first three states. Often we say these are the states of consciousness. The waking state, Jagrat Avastha, dream state, Swapana Avastha, dreamless sleep, Sushupti Avastha. These states alternate every day and night. During the waking and dream states, you are aware of the activities of your mind, and deep sleep, you are aware of the absence of any mental activity. To be aware of these three changing states is like going to a movie theater. The light is on, you can see the screen. Light turns off, you see what's going on the screen. It's almost like that. But technically, these three states are not the states of consciousness. Loosely we use that word, but it's not that. It's not the consciousness which goes through the changes. It's only the mind which goes through the changes. So when we are in a Jagrat Avastha, our mind is fully alert, looking outside. When we are in a dream state, mind has turned inward. And at the time of the Sushupti, the deep sleep state, the mind is resting. There's nothing to perceive for the mind, nothing to see for the mind. But consciousness was there, the same, in the waking state also, in the dream state also, in the deep sleep state also. So remember, it's your mind that undergoes these three states, not consciousness. To describe waking, dream, and deep sleep as three states as a consciousness is somewhat misleading. So I would say it again that it's more accurate to call them three states of mind. Or you can also refer to them as three states of experience. And experience happens through the mind. In Sanskrit, they are called avastha treya, which means three states. Okay, so these are the three states. What about the fourth state, which is called turiya? The turiya, simply that word means fourth. And that is actually the consciousness. Turiya word. I want you to go through with me in this Upanishad very briefly today, which is called a Mandukya Upanishad. In that Upanishad, the word Turiya is found for the very first time. This Upanishad records the profound insights and discoveries of an ancient rishi who said that Turiya is consciousness itself. The unchanging consciousness that illumines or reveals the three changing states of experience that alternate in your mind. Very clearly, this rishi is talking about what consciousness is. According to this rishi, Turiya is not a particular state of consciousness, nor is it an extraordinary spiritual experience. Turiya is pure consciousness. Consciousness that is unborn, uncreated, limitless, vast, and utterly unaffected by worldly suffering. So according to this rishi, Turiya is not a fourth state in addition to the other three, but rather it is the one unchanging consciousness that is invariably present in all three states. The waking state cannot exist without the consciousness. The dream state cannot exist, or even the deep sleep state cannot exist. Because you might find this description surprising, because many people believe that Turiya is a state of superconsciousness, higher or elevated state in which you can enjoy experiences that transcend the material world. Some other people think that the state of omniscience, a state in which you know everything, or a state in which you can know and experience God, is Turiya. All that sounds wonderful, but none of it was ever taught by the ancient rishis. They discovered that Turiya is not a transient state. It's not that sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not, or it's a temporary experience, no. But rather it's the limitless, transcendental, unchanging consciousness that is our true nature for all of us. First, let's see how the Mandukya Upanishad describes Turiya. And then we'll discuss based upon that. Mandukya Upanishad declares, I am Atma. That means this self, the conscious being, your true nature is Chatushpad. I am Atma Chatushpad. This is the verse number 2 of that Upanishad. It has 4 parts, 4 states. The waking state is defined as a Bahish Pragya. Bahish Pragya means the state in which your consciousness is extrovert, turned outward towards the world. Then the dream state is defined as Antah Pragya, the state in which your consciousness is introvert. So Bahir is outer world, Antah means introvert, withdrawn from worldly experiences. Then the state of deep sleep is defined as Pragyan Ghan. Literally, that means thick or dense consciousness. Ghan. A state of darkness, like the darkness of the room or darkness of any screen. After describing these 3 states, the Upanishad then reveals the nature of Turiya in an amazing passage. It says, Na antaha pragyam, na bahisha pragyam, na ubhyata pragyam. Na anta means not introvert. Na bahish pragyam, not extrovert. Na ubhyataha pragyam, not in between. Ubhya means both. Na pragyan ghanam, not dense. Na pragyam, na apragyam. Not mere, not unconsciousness. So it says Turiya is not like the introvert consciousness of the dream state, nor is it like the extrovert consciousness of the waking state, nor is it an intermediate state in between the waking and the dream state. Turiya is not like the dark, dense consciousness of deep sleep, nor is it mere consciousness, nor is it unconsciousness, the absence of consciousness. That's how this Rishi describes Turiya or consciousness in this verse. So all these expressions, they negate different kinds of conditioned consciousness. Consciousness that is associated with the conditions of your mind. Conditions like waking, dream, and deep sleep. So if you understand it properly, Turiya is a pure, unconditioned consciousness, utterly independent of your mind and completely unaffected by the activities. Unconditioned consciousness is often explained in the scriptures, in the Upanishads, Yoga Sutras also, by comparing to a clear crystal. If you put the clear crystal in front of this orange color, it will look orange. Crystal is not orange. It's only in front of the orange color. If you put it in front of the blue color, it will look blue. It doesn't have any color of its own. And at the same time, it does not get affected by the color either. The minute you remove it away from it, it's clear again. It does not absorb any color, whether it's a orange or a blue or a green. The same way, different conditions of our mind, it seems like that your consciousness is turning into awake, dream, or immersed in the deep sleep. Just like that crystal can look different colors, but in spite of the appearance, it's unconditioned consciousness. It does not change. It's the same. It stays crystal clear, pure, joy, blissful. It does not get affected by those states of mind. Or you can say that Turiya is not affected in any way by the states of your mind. Next, the Upanishad says that Turiya, unconditioned consciousness, is adrishtam, unseen or imperceptible, avyavharyam, detached, not involved in worldly activities. Body gets involved, mind gets involved, ego gets involved, Atma does not get involved. Agrahyam, ungraspable, impossible to objectively or objectify with your mind or senses. That means if you want to understand with our mind or the senses, we cannot. Alakshanam, indefinable. Achintyam, inconceivable. Avyadeshyam, indescribable. We can talk about it, but we cannot describe it. Turiya is not an object that can be observed or defined. Instead, Turiya is the awareful subject consciousness, your essential nature. Medical terminology cannot truly describe your inner subjective experience. Even the words of the great rishis cannot truly describe Turiya, the unconditioned consciousness. If Turiya is imperceptible, ungraspable, and inconceivable, then how can it possibly be experienced? Upanishads have the answer for that. Turiya is ek atma pratyasaram, one self present in all experiences. It is the one true self, ek atma, the unconditioned consciousness that's invariably present in every experience. Turiya is the consciousness present in your experiences right now. You don't have to go somewhere to find it. So right now, this very moment, you can experience it. And it's not a temporary state or a special experience. Turiya is your true inner self, the so-called inner divinity, which we call consciousness in simple terms. Turiya remains fundamentally unchanged by the conditions and activities of your mind. So that's why, whether it's a saint or a sinner, that consciousness is there. That spark of God or the light of the divinity is there. It does not go away in a sinner or at any place. Just like a person watching a movie in a theater remains fundamentally unchanged by the triumphs and the tragedy that take place on the screen, the same way Turiya is transcendental. It's beyond all worldly experiences. To explain this, the Rishi concludes by saying, Turiya is prapanch upshamam, unworldly, untainted by worldly sufferings. Shantam, silent, still, unchanging. That's silent. That's Shantam. Shivam, another term for Turiya. Pure, holy, divine. Advaitam, non-dual. Beyond the divisions and complexities of worldly existence. For all these reasons, Turiya or consciousness certainly deserves to be called the divinity. that dwells within all of us. Not just you and me, everyone, as our true nature. So according to the Mandukya Upanishad, Turiya is unconditioned consciousness. Just like the crystal does not really change color, in the same way, unconditioned consciousness does not change from one state to another. It's our mind that has states, not consciousness. In fact, our mind has many states. And these states can be described in various ways. For example, in a well-known scripture, Yogvashishta, these days we are studying that in our classes. Author of Yogvashishta is Rishi Valmiki. He identifies 7 stages or levels of spiritual wisdom. He says the first stage on the path of enlightenment is Shubhecha, a strong desire for enlightenment, Shubhecha. The second stage is Vicharna, self-inquiry. The third stage is Tanu Manasa, when your worldly desires weaken. The fourth stage is Sattvapata, realization of the ultimate truth. Fifth is Asangti, detachment. The sixth is Padartha Bhavna, cessation of worldly suffering. And the seventh and the final stage, he says, Turyaga, reaching Turyaga and abiding in unconditional consciousness. So the point is that, according to this great Rishi, that these 7 stages of spiritual wisdom are not states of consciousness. They are states or conditions of mind. Because the whole sadhana is done with the mind. Sure, we work on our body also, because body is a vehicle we are traveling in right now. But the real sadhana is the sadhana of the mind. So these are the states or conditions of the mind. Mind is the one which gets detached. Mind is the one which really wants enlightenment now. Mind is the one which wants to know the truth. So at first, your true divine nature remains hidden, unrecognized, because it is covered by the so-called veil of ignorance. And where is the ignorance? In our mind. That ignorance, of course, resides deep inside our mind. We don't know how many lives we have been going through with this ignorance. And the process of removing it also takes place in our mind. Remember that. So you might have encountered teachings that identifies 7 states of consciousness or 4 states of consciousness. Okay, but essentially, you got to remember that different states are only for the mind. Consciousness itself doesn't have the states. So based upon this Mandukya Upanishad and other scriptures, it's very clear that ancient rishis, what they taught, the message is the same. But then you might say that you might have heard this word Turiya Atit. Turiya Atit, what is that experience? Because it says Turiya Atit means beyond Turiya. Because it's briefly mentioned in a Mandal Brahman Upanishad. It's not explained there or in any other scripture. So it's generally considered to be an expression where that rishi is just talking about the glories of enlightenment, not a definitive teaching. So do not get confused with that word, Turiya Atit, thinking that there is something beyond Turiya. So this Turiya, or the consciousness, we should properly understand. And this is what we are. We should avoid the mistakes, because we got to understand the scriptures properly. That's why proper guidance is needed. And guidance can be found in the wisdom of the ancient rishis and very traditional teachings. Because these teachings can guide you to realize you to true nature, who we are, which is unconditioned consciousness, which remains utterly unaffected by the problems of our body, problems of our mind, or even the world around us. In the Prakriti, everything is bound to change. But this consciousness, which we can call it Turiya, or we can call it a soul, or we can call it Atma, spirit, whatever name we want to give, that does not change. And this discovery can only free us, because when we experience this, sure, we need to know theoretically first, then we need the guidance also. Then ultimately, when we experience it, it will free us from personal suffering, and we can really fully enjoy all the blessings of life. Because this life has a lot of blessings. And not only that, once you experience it, you can also become a blessing for others also. No matter where you are, with whom you are, not only the people, the animals, the plant kingdom, wherever you go, whatever you touch, whatever you are in a company with, they are blessed from your blessings. So this is what these rishis, with all these beautiful verses, the Upanishads, they are taking us to that level. Recognize who you are. So this is what I wanted you to know today from this word consciousness. Whenever you read the scriptures or listen to uh, other teachers also, remember these technical terms. If we have a full understanding, proper understanding, then we can understand the message much better also. So Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om.